Hello and welcome to the Open Air Podcast. My name is Deving Desai and I'm joined as always by Mr. Simon Bushell. Bush, planes, trains, and automobiles, but I made it back for our French Open wrap-up episode. I'm proud of myself, also proud of all of the various staff members at London Gatwick and Pearson Airport for hooking it up. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I wonder what time zone you're currently on. Or do you think you're on?
Oh, great question. I think it would be close to midnight UK time, and my day started around 6 a.m. So it's been a hell of a long day, and I have found catching up on the men's final not as difficult as I thought it would have been, based on the fact that we all kind of assumed what was going to happen. But yeah, Novak, number 23. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But as we conclude another French Open in which I think there was some good stuff and there was some bad stuff. I know that's not breaking news, but a bit of a mixed bag as usual at a slam.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest headline out of this is coming out of the women's side and seeing Iga Swiatek defending her title, remaining at world number one, becoming a four-time slam champion, breaking a bunch of records or equaling a bunch of records in terms of youngest players to have 4 titles. She just turned 22 about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. It's Iga's world still on the WTA side. She looks as dominant as ever on this surface, and it was really good to see.
It was, and I think one of the cooler parts of this, and we'll get into how amazing the Karolina Muchova story is in general, because I think that is someone worth highlighting in terms of returning from injury and nearly doing the damn thing against 2 of the top women's players in the world right now in that epic semifinal against Sabalenka, in which she found a way to dig extremely deep. I think we asked that question of Iga because it's oftentimes looked really, really easy for her, because she's just been clear and above the class of the WTA, especially on the clay. But this was doing it against an opponent who was definitely worth their place in the final. I found that extremely impressive. I definitely might have written her off a few times in that match myself.
Certainly, yeah. I think if you take a look at Swiatek's run to this title, it's not the easiest of journeys, but it's also one of those that you expected her to win pretty much every match that she was in. I think most of us circle that quarterfinal match with Coco Gauff and wonder what would happen. Well, what happened was the same thing that's happened the last 5 times they've met, which is a complete and utter demolition job. And that rivalry is not a rivalry. It's not even close. I think in general, she really does have a number, Dev.
Yeah, and I think the Coco Gauff stuff, we can maybe dig into that a bit deeper, but I find it kind of interesting that Iga has made that rivalry irrelevant, and not to slander Coco at all, because obviously there's a lot of runway left for her in terms of her career. But this was someone that we expected to maybe cause more problems at this point in the game for Iga Swiatek, and it just hasn't happened yet. But even following that up with a tough encounter against Beatrice Haddad Maia, who I think stunned a few people with her performance against Ons Jabeur. Haddad Maia had an excellent year last year as well, and I got a chance to see her up close at the Canadian Open and was very impressed by someone who can hit the hell out of the ball and someone who can generate pace when she needs to from seemingly all angles. Iga found a way in that tiebreak, and maybe it was a sign of things to come in the final in terms of finding that way and being resilient enough to close the deal. I mean, if we want to dig into the final, especially Bush, it didn't look extremely tough for Iga either, going into that second set in which she had a 3-love lead, I believe, right?
Yeah, this was plain sailing. It was definitely a player and an athlete where there was levels on display. And no, it didn't really end up that way. And credit to Karolina Muchova, because she gave such a great account of herself for the entirety of the week, more than a good account of herself. I think she finally realized the talent that she has. And I think many of us have been banging on for a long time that she looks far better a player than her results have indicated. Although maybe that has some nuance in it as well, because I think she has had some good results. But in general, if you were to just look at this player, she passes the eye test every time. She's so just graceful to watch on a tennis court in the way that she maneuvers and the way that she uses her brain. And I think it did give Swiatek problems, especially in that second set where she was starting to use more angles on the court, forcing Iga Swiatek to move forward at times that she didn't really look comfortable in. And I think those elements were ones that started to get under Swiatek's skin a little bit. But she does what she does, that being Swiatek, is that she just finds a way to, on those big points, produce her best tennis. And I think that was really the difference in this final.
I was watching the second half of this tournament in England or in the UK, and because of that, I was watching on Eurosport, and I had a lot of Chris Everett on the call, and I was making some jokes on the Discord because I think Chris Everett, and maybe some people love this, but I think she is a bit irreverent on the broadcast, and she's totally down to do her own thing, but she can do this fully justifiably based on her record as someone who's created just some utterly ridiculous marks in the game of tennis, especially on clay as well. So I found her being on this call in this final especially poignant as well, Bush, because I think even Chrissy was acknowledging the kind of otherworldly skills of Iga for most of the like, I guess you could say the first set and a half of this match. And then we kind of got this moment where it was, wait a minute, what's happening? Is this maybe not a choke, but is this a bit of a collapse at a moment we really haven't seen from Iga? But to see her find a way and to hear Chris Everett kind of react to that as well, I found super interesting. I know we like to talk about commentary a lot on this podcast, but Iga forcing the commentators to maybe take a different angle and talk about something a bit tad different than usual, I found illuminating, because too often it is usually cliches. We'll talk about Novak and how he's spoken about it. I mean, we understand why, but I think for Iga, we were getting into that territory where it's like, oh, it's so easy, and this is just something she does, and she's just clearly better than everyone else. But to see her have to make the uncomfortable look comfortable, and not even comfortable look possible in a way that we had yet to see in her young career, I found that especially cool. I mean, she dropped the trophy in the end in the trophy celebration, reminding us that she is still a bit of a dork, and I say that in the nicest way possible. She's our dork as a tennis fan. You mentioned some of the records, Bush, and I think you're in a conversation now with Monica Seles and Naomi Osaka, third player to win each of her first 4 major finals, and she's the youngest to win her 4th since Serena Williams did that more than 2 decades ago. Naomi Osaka's name being there, though, Bush, had me thinking about some comps and where we thought maybe Osaka would be at this point in the game. And I mean, even back then, I don't know how confident you were about Naomi Osaka adding to her haul. Maybe you were a bit skeptical. I think we were all pretty comfortable saying she was going to win a bunch more. For Iga, I think there's even less doubt. And it's pretty easy to see her winning quite a few more of these in the very near future.
I still think she's favorite at every tournament that she goes into, despite the results this year and despite how well Elena Rybakina and Anya Sabalenka have played. I don't think there's any doubt that even on a grass court, I still think Iga Swiatek's the best player in the world, and I still think she is not, I wouldn't say the overwhelming favorite. I think that gets a little, there's levels to that conversation based upon the surface that she's on. On a clay court, there's no doubt at all. She's the favorite at Roland Garros next year, without a doubt, unless someone comes out of nowhere and has a worldy year. But even then, I still think I would pick Iga Swiatek against the field. That's how good she is on this surface, and I think that's how good she's been this year. Even though, you know, she did lose a couple of times on clay, she looks still better than everyone else. And I think her results during the course of the week back that up. Is that I did not think at any point that she was going to lose a match here in any of the matches that she was in. Definitely there were close moments and there were ones that she had to solve problems for, but she's still the class of the field.
Bageled a bunch of people in the first week, and then when it got difficult in the second week, she showed her true class. Just in terms of the final itself, Bush, the Discord was going crazy, and I think understandably so. The breakpoint conversion rate from both players was pretty astounding. I think Luke dropped that in there as well. It was, I think, a sign of a high quality match, and you called it a great advertisement for the sport. And I think that's generally what we got continuously from the WTA this week. I mean, we talked about the final, but the semifinal that Mukova and Sabalenka had, I mean, holy hell, how good was that as well?
Yeah, and not to diminish the achievement of Iga Swiatek because world number one, rightfully so, 4-time slam champion. It's her week and she deserves all the plaudits and everything that comes out of it. But I think it is worth touching on Muchova quickly because, god damn, it was fun to watch a player that we've been waiting so damn long, Dev, to see this player actually achieve the talent level that she has and get to a final. And I think the thing that I will say about her, and the biggest compliment perhaps I can give to her, is that in those big moments and the way that she was playing against Anya Sabalenka, she looked like the better player. And I think she backed up, obviously, by winning the match. But I thought she handled herself with such incredible ability on court. Like, her ball striking is amazing. Her brain is astonishing. And I think she overcomes some fragility in her body. I think that's been one of her biggest weaknesses throughout her career. By just, managing points, managing game speed, doing all the things really well. I feel like if you were going to take a young girl who's like 3 or 4 years of age, who's just starting to pick up a racket, just tell her to watch Karolina Muchova play because it's just very, very aesthetically nice to watch. And also technically it's so sound.
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote from her about 18 months ago when she was dealing with the injury. A doctor told her that she shouldn't play tennis anymore, which I think is quite something to be told when this is your life and this is something you devoted so much time to come from there to now is pretty exceptional. And I saw some remarks early on in that final saying, I wish Sabalenka was in it because it would have been more competitive. But
absolute nonsense, Dev. Absolute nonsense.
Well, I maybe it was that doctor perhaps saying that as well. But I think that is a perfect encapsulation of how much desire this player has and how much will she's shown. I know Cromulent Josh on the Discord has been a massive supporter of her and a big fan of her game. And in terms of producing good matches to watch, she has always been at the very top of women's tennis. That continued these last 2 weeks. And I really do hope that we see her lift a slam trophy one day soon because I think she wholly deserves it. And boy, I mean, she provided us with some amazing moments.
She really did. I think one thing that goes unseen a lot of the times for Karolina Muchova, she's a big girl. Like, she's nearly 6 foot tall. She strikes the ball incredibly well. And the stature of her serve, I think, held her in so much during the course of the last 2 weeks of getting these wins, is that her serve just, it went to another level. And I think it has to for the rest of her game to work really well on clay. Deb, there's enough here to suggest that she should be so damn good on grass as well. She just looks like a grass court player when she's playing here. So she's managed to keep her body healthy. Look out for the grass court season. It would be exciting to see how it goes.
Do you have an answer for the Czech women just being consistently very, very good? I think she's the 5th Czech woman to reach the championship match in Paris, following Navratilova, Safarova, Vondrousova, and Krejcikova. But overall, just the full gamut of Czech women who are up and around the top 100 and constantly in the business end of tournaments is pretty remarkable to see. And I think the history of this country in tennis is well documented, both on the women's and men's side. But it is pretty remarkable to see how many Czech flags there are constantly in these tournaments and how many of those flags end up making it to the second week and into the business end of these tournaments.
Well, let me ask you a question. I guess I'll pose this to the entire audience. What number or what rank in terms of Czech female players do you think she is? From 1 to 10?
Ooh, 5?
6. She's the 6th top ranked Czech player.
It's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous and pretty outstanding. Holy hell. I was proud that I even got that close. Any other closing thoughts, Bush, on the WTA side at Roland Garros? I think I said this from the open air account that the WTA will save us, and it's a bit tongue-in-cheek and a bit dramatic as we watch some of the challengers on the ATP once again fail to break through, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But I thought, once again, the WTA produced some absolutely superb tennis, and I had a great time watching tennis in a bunch of settings in the UK in which the women's matches were featured and talked about where I was watching them. And it wasn't anything about the men, really. It was about how damn good the WTA is in producing these phenomenal tournaments and these phenomenal matches.
I think remove everything else from this conversation, and the WTA was just a better sport and just a better tour to watch. The matches were better across the board, and I thought it wasn't even close. I thought they were head and shoulders above the ATP of what they had to offer, which makes all of the non-primetime stuff seem all a bit shit, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, because there's some really good stuff across the board. One quick shout out to Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, getting to the quarterfinals, losing, of course, to Karolina Muchova in a really fun and exciting match to watch. Watch out again. She's back. I think she manages to go and she keeps wanting to keep going. I think she's going to have a real shot at doing some things for the back half of the season as well, because it did not look like a player who had missed a beat really in returning to the tour.
Thought the Jabeur-Danilovic match was excellent. That Pavlyuchenkova-Mertens match was really good as well, Bush, in terms of just back and forth, and at least Mertens consistently being there and being a force to be reckoned with. Alina Svitolina making a big run at this tournament as a mother now, and we saw Gael Monfils have that epic one match when that's all his body could take. But Alina Svitolina, Bush, I think that Sabalenka match is fascinating, because I wondered on another day if she would have had enough to break through there. 6-4, 6-4 looks a little more comfortable than it actually was. But it just again goes to speak of how many high quality matches we saw. Bianca Andreescu falling against Tercerenko, but also giving us another sign that maybe grass could be something for her this year as we look forward to Wimbledon.
Potentially, yeah. I
maybe.
think maybe we'll see. Good doubles player, as we'll come into in a second. I wanted to just round this section out with landing back on Swiatek, and just a final point on her is that the trophy celebration you sort of marked this. You look a bit like a dork. I think that's true.
It feels a lot more incendiary when you repeat it back to me verbatim. I would like to strike that for the record.
It's like how they do in courtrooms, like. Yeah. He referred to the defendant as a, quote, dork. Yeah. Would you describe that as incendiary language, sir? Sorry, yeah. No, I think one final point on her is that I think she's such a really good ambassador for the sport, because she is introverted, shy, a little bit nerdy, a little bit all over the place, a bit of a klutz, all of this stuff. And she seems very relatable, very human, very not stage managed, all of those things, and just seems like a really cool person as well. So I think we're lucky to have her at the top of the sport. And I think, yeah, she doesn't quite fit the bill of what the most marketable athlete you would want. But I actually kind of would push back on that a little bit, because I think by the standards of who you'd want at the top of the sport in 2023 and marketing to someone who's under the age of 16, I can't think of a better player I'd want at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before, but like, this is on tennis to market people better, you know, like it shouldn't be seen as a drawback that she does carry those traits, and it's maybe just because it's not as easy as having someone be aggro all the time, or flipping off their opponents, or playing to the crowd, or, you know, all of these things that we potentially look for or see as media stories that are picked up outside of tennis that draw more people in. I think that's usually the gauge, and in 2023, I genuinely hope we would be better than that, or maybe moving past that. And I think we see a lot of that still in tennis today in a bad way, but I think Iga is someone that we can hope to push us beyond these common tropes. Bush, I think that's a good point. Phenomenal champion, and this is, boy, this is just the beginning. This is going to be someone's career we're lucky to get to see from very beginning to hopefully for many more years to come. 22 years old, 4-time Slam champion, 3-time French Open champion. We'll see what happens at Wimbledon. I think the idea that Rybakina will hopefully be healthy for that, Bush. I know an injury for her. There's some issues with the allergy and sickness in Europe and the pollen count. I saw some remarks on that. That was unfortunate timing. And Sabalenka looked pretty damn good. Like I think that was a coin flip match, and I would have been fascinated to see a Sabalenka-Swiatek final here.
Yeah, we might get that at Wimbledon. We might see that on the grass courts.
Yeah.
Wait and see.
The big three is real. I'm comfortable saying that, even with Muchova doing excellent here. I feel like the big three in the WTA is real, Bush.
I think there is a real separation. I think this tournament did bring that very much to fore. Even though I think we would have said that prior to this tournament as well, I think it probably just cemented it.
Phenomenal. All right. We'll leave that conversation there. When we come back after the break, Novak Djokovic gets number 23 with Tom Brady in the house and a whole lot of other celebs. We have plenty of doubles talk, including a lot of Canadians involved, Bianca, Layla, plus a new record set in men's wheelchair tennis and a new rivalry that we could see carry on for many years. All of that coming up next on Open Era. Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. Well, Simon. Casper Ruud potentially putting all of my statements on his bulletin board. Proved all of us wrong by making this final, but I just kind of, because I think the story, once again, is Novak Djokovic setting a new mark in men's tennis and pushing himself a bit further away from Rafael Nadal and further away from Roger Federer in that conversation and talking about the men's greatest player of all time. He did it in typical Novak fashion, which means he was just basically unbeatable in tie breaks, which is, I think, something that is kind of maybe not overlooked and not after his mark here. I think V put a stat in the Discord regarding Novak's prowess in the tie breaks, but he fended off an early charge from Casper Ruud. Casper Ruud didn't look all that bad, to be honest, early on, and you had to wonder, maybe, could this be more of a match than we thought? But Novak figured it out. 7-6, 6-3, 7-5. He has now won all 4 slams at least 3 times. Think he answered a few of the questions we had against Carlos Alcaraz. I know Carlos Alcaraz's body didn't really hold up, but I know you're not typically happy to be talking about this right now, Simon. So I will play your devil's advocate and say, can you not really respect just how ridiculous Novak is?
Absolutely, right? I don't think there's any denying that. I think off the top, the pair of us should say, like, congratulations on 23. Incredible performance, like ruthlessly efficient. If you want to sort of circle what this last 2 weeks was for him, at no point did he really look like he was in danger of losing. You could make some arguments that the Khachanov second set and the very start of the third, there was a mild amount of danger. But even then, I'm just so sad that we didn't get a continuation of the Alcaraz match, because I thought that match was beginning to turn, I have to say. Like, at the conclusion of that second set and the way that Alcaraz played, I really thought that was going to be a one for the ages. And I certainly have been banging the drum for a long time that I think this has been a changing of the guard. And I think him being Alcaraz here would have actually won that match. You know, he said, whatever, like there's shoulda, woulda, coulda and all this sort of stuff. The body broke down. The nerves got the better of him, all this kind of stuff. He cramped. There's a tough lesson in there for Alcaraz. We've seen him respond consistently to setbacks and effectively terminate a style, correcting very quickly from that. And I think we will see that. Mm-hmm. But so that from the top, you know, congratulations on the win. It wasn't exactly the most murderer's row they had to beat, but even then, you have to beat who's put in front of you. I guess a more broad question that I'd have for you, Dev. Was this the least inspiring final in our memory at a Grand Slam? I had zero interest in watching this. It was incredibly, just vanilla in terms of maybe some of that is just the fact that no one on the planet gave Casper Ruud a chance of winning this final, which automatically, I think, reduced his opportunities or the opportunity for excitement here. But in general, a bit of a dud, I would say.
Well, I was on a plane for it, and as soon as I got back into phone territory where people could send me messages, I got a lot of messages that read, yep, kind of what we thought, and all right, number 23. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that was going to happen, and I will tip my cap to Casper Ruud for responding from a pretty bad year and playing quite poorly. I had buried him several times. I know I kind of turned on him after seeing him in that Netflix doc, kind of be a jerk. But I will tip my cap to him for making it this far and also dusting Holger Rune, because I know they have a history as well. But For me, it's a couple of things. I don't fault Novak for taking care of business at all. I mean, this is what he's supposed to do, and it was ruthless efficiency. But I do think there's a bit of a story here about how the youngsters, and not just Charlie, because I think Alcaraz cramping up like that was unfortunate. And I thought the conversation about Novak rubbing it in too much was ridiculous. I mean, you have to play to win the game, as Herm Edwards once said. That is just stupidity, because if you wanted to leave that door open for Carlos Alcaraz, be my guest. That'll be a horrible thing to do. But Holger Rune as well, Bush. Like, I don't think it was as much physically, but he went away really shockingly to me in that quarter against Ruud. And we look for this next crop of guys to make a breakthrough against your Novaks, and really maybe just Novak, because we're not going to see Rafa for a while. You don't really get that. You don't get that vibe as much as you see on the WTA, where it does seem like there's a lot more possible when it comes to some shakeups. And I thought Josh in the Discord had a really good point on that, about how it feels like there is just an avenue for change in the WTA that doesn't really exist on the ATP. And I really wonder what it's going to be like for Novak when he's chasing himself now, because I know that how much his mentality was shaped by the fact that he was chasing these other guys and measuring himself against them and trying to put maybe Serbia on the map as a tennis country as well. Will it be different for him if none of these other players can make the breakthrough against him at the biggest moments? Will that maybe make his mentality wane a bit? I'm fascinated by that, but I agree that there was little doubt in my mind, that this final would go this way. And I don't know, there's been a few of them recently with Novak in the final where I felt that as well, right? I'm trying to think of the last time Novak was in a final against one of these other guys where it was like, he's got a decent, realistic shot.
Yeah, I agree. It's just testament to how good of a player he is as well, right?
That's the other thing as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he does not have the most interesting game style, but it's too damn good. Like, he's too effective at what he does.
I think his serve is, like, low-key ridiculously good. And I know there's a lot of other things to talk about when it comes to Novak, but the serve, maybe that's something that I've seen shift from that US Open loss to Medvedev, because that's really the last time, right? I think since then, Kyrgios at Wimbledon, yeah, I think we knew he would take care of that. Tsitsipas Australian Open, definitely felt comfortable choosing him there. Berrettini before that Medvedev loss, for sure.
Yeah, not a chance.
Tsitsipas and the French Open before that went 5 sets, but God, did that felt like a meek 5-setter. Like, it's really interesting to me that it's maybe a Medvedev is the person that we missed the most in the second week after that shock loss.
Yeah, not convinced it was a shock loss, but whatever.
True.
So counterpoint, you had some choice words to say about Holger Rune going away.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was a really good 2 weeks for him. I really did. Like, I know he lost to his biggest rivalry, or rival, sorry, I should say. But I think he was fucked, basically, from the Sorrentino match.
Yeah.
Which was self-inflicted, no doubt at all about it. But there was also moments in that fourth round match that he looked like he was going away and still managed to find a way to win and get over the line. And the same thing kind of could be said about that match against Ruud. He basically looked terrible for the first 2 sets. Looked completely like he didn't want to be there, and still dug a performance out where he won a set and made it interesting in the fourth as well. I think he is still figuring out his body and how to manage things at Grand Slam level. But I actually saw a decent amount from him during the course of the week. He has got it, Dev, in terms of fighting ability and in terms of winning big points and consistency in those moments, where I look at it and think, I'm circling this one in my brain, because there was nothing in the course of those 2 weeks that it made me go like, I don't think he's a Grand Slam champion, because I really do. I think he is very soon.
He's on the very short list of players that if they did get to a final against Novak at this stage of a tournament,
it's not an instant loss, right?
Exactly. You're like, he still probably will lose, but also we'll get to see some stuff. I will also shout out Casper Ruud for bageling Zverev in that third set. Thank you, sir. Thank you for just completely crushing whatever dream that was. And I mean, the fact that they scheduled this guy on like 90 night matches and on Chatrier consistently was, I mean, you can Sure, if you want to select 98% men's matches for the night sessions, but this guy again and again, just doubly stupid.
I would have taken Casper Ruud over Alexander Zverev, for goodness sake.
So yeah, I earnestly mean that. Thank you, Casper Ruud, for knocking him down quite a few pegs. Anything else ATP-wise, Bush? I think I missed you last week, so I think we could briefly touch on maybe some of that other stuff as well.
I don't know. ATP was kind of trash, to be honest, during the course of these last 2 weeks, so I'm not in a huge rush to revisit it.
I will say the Rublev loss after bageling Sinogo in the second set had left me stunned. I was absolutely stunned that happened, and I was extremely shook. I love my boy Taylor Fritz, too, giving it to that French crowd. They went from, I mean, I've been on the record saying I like their boorishness, but I did think there was times these last couple of weeks where I'm like, you guys are just assholes. Like, I don't think there's anything revelatory to say. You guys are jerks.
I feel like sometimes we want the French crowd to boo the bad people and cheer the good ones. I think they just end up booing everyone.
They're getting it wrong. They're getting it damn wrong. Also, shouts to Yoshito Nishioka for taking out Say Both Wild with another bagel in a fifth set. Need that. Desperately needed that. Okay. The doubles talk, Bush. No, there was a lot of controversy regarding doubles as well. That default heard around the world. But tough loss for Layla and Taylor Townsend in the women's final.
Tough loss. A very tough loss, actually, just given, I think...
It started extremely well. I was able to catch that live before my plane boarded, but they looked exceptional in that first set. I'm like, all right, this could be over before we leave.
They also lost to Hsieh Wei and Wang Qingjiu, right? Like, so...
Oh, yeah. No shame in that. No shame in
that. Very good players that they lost to. I don't know. Like, they maybe... And this can transition us into the Bianca Andreescu talk as well, is that the Canadian women have found a second hope, Dev. They have found their calling, is the fact that they might actually be incredibly good doubles players. And maybe that's okay. Maybe they can just be 15 in the world in singles, but getting up to the very, very business end of Grand Slams in doubles.
Yeah, and I loved Taylor Townsend, I think, giving Layla a bit of a pep talk after that final as well. Because I think Layla is in an interesting spot where she's not really finding much success on the singles court, but it is excellent to see her getting this deep into the tournament in doubles. And once again, we don't need to be the first to say it. There's so much value in doubles for several reasons, not just honing in on your volley skills and your player on the net, but also getting that winning feeling, which might be hard to come by on the singles court when you're not playing your best. And I think Bianca, like you said, Bush, is a good example of that as well. Bianca and her partner, Michael Venus, losing in the final to Kato and puts that Germany-Japan link up. I'll leave that unsaid. Anything else there? Do you have any take on the Buzkova, Sorribes, Tormo, Suchiyata, Kato incident? I know that was a very hot topic.
I loved the rush, the sheer rush of like online tennis communities to just rally around Mio Kato. It's like, honestly, they were trying to resolve a diplomatic incident.
We had people come after us for cheering for Bianca in that final. Like, how dare you? Like, don't you understand? Mostly joking there because our friend TikTok Tennis James said that. But I mean, yeah. Yeah, and again, it's like the Gordon Ramsay, like, you donkey, and then, oh, we love you, when someone else hits a ball kid accidentally. Just the way it went down definitely felt shady as hell. So that was good to see, kind of, at least one of them getting over that and winning.
Is it inflammatory to say that she should have been defaulted? I think the right decision was made.
Yeah, like, I mean, honestly, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do here? Like, you can't really just play this on a case by case basis, because I think in that sense, you're really hoping that everyone who's officiating on that day and umpiring on that day has the proper judgment, and that's where it gets super dicey. So I think there's reason for a one size fits all kind of ruling there, but I thought that run for Bianca, like, I know mixed doubles, let's say it's not particularly well advertised unless you have these super teams, like unless you have an Andy Murray playing with Serena, like it's not talked about much at all. But when you have someone like Bianca making it to the final, a few more people tune in, or a few more people at least hear about it, which again, I think is very important just generally, because so much skill required, so much talent required. so much effort to maintain the grind. Because I think for a lot of these cats, like they're not the people who are up in the top 50 or so in the singles rankings, right? There's a lot of specialists here who need these tournaments to survive on the tour.
I feel like Michael Venus has forever been burned into my brain. Bowie Cowan's faux pas at the World Tour Finals of referring to him as Michael Penis.
That's how. That is also how.
I feel like a 14-year-old boy.
He's really good at double stuff. He's more than just a faux pas. Yeah. All right. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Men's doubles. Should we touch on men's doubles? So Djokovic and Kraijek won their first title together. I think this raises Austin Kraijek to world number 1 in doubles. It's his first Grand Slam singles title. So record breaking in that regard. Cool to see. We have another new number 1 on the men's side. I mean, we're up to in the course of this year. It seems to pass around like hot potatoes. This is the third doubles title for Djokovic. They've turned into a very good team, and they well and truly put to bed the horror show, the disaster that was them bottling, choke jobbing last year's.
Yes.
In last year's final, should we say that?
I think you can say that as well. I think it's kind of interesting, and this is me being devil's ignorant, so forgive me for what I'm about to say. But I've noticed this as well with Coco and Pegula on the women's side. It's interesting to me that they are individual rankings for doubles players.
Yeah, but I mean, how else are you going to qualify it, right? Like if someone plays with multiple partners throughout the course of the year. Would you want monogamy in doubles? Is that what you're asking for?
Is that so much to ask? Is that too traditionalist to ask? Am I going to be banned for this extreme take that I just want some
after that right-wing sponsorship? The grift work is coming in.
I redact the question. I redact it.
Let me touch on the junior champion. So I just wanted to touch on Alina Korneeva, or Korneeva? I can't remember the correct pronunciation. Forgive me. Don't manage to get a huge amount of junior matches to watch. I did watch this one, though. And she's an interesting person because she is the first player in a very, very long time to win the first 2 Grand Slams of the year.
Wow, yeah.
There's not a lot of players who have done it. I think it's been done like 3 or 4 times in the last 50 years or something. So like it's a very, very small group of people. She's only 15. She looks like a champion in terms of the way that she plays. I will say, though, like watching these players play, you have no real way of knowing how they're going to translate. And some players, I think, have better games in terms of how they are able to adapt going from juniors into the main tour. She doesn't look like a player that would make that transition to me. Really? The strokes look too long.
Yeah.
She looks like it's all a bit too, I don't know, a bit wild, I would say, in terms of that. And she looks like she has the game that would work extremely well at junior level and not really have an element to it which goes into the main tour. All of that is being said is that she's probably going to go and win 20 Grand Slam titles.
Forgive me for doing my best Michael Caine impression, Simon, but she's only 15 years old. Like, I mean, that's a pretty bold claim to make, considering how. And she beat Mira Andreeva, who we raved about in that Aussie Open final, right? The junior final.
She did indeed, yes. Maybe there is potential here.
I mean, it's interesting. She played an 18-year-old in the final at the French Open, right? Perez Alcaron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I wondered, as an 18-year-old losing to a 15-year-old in a final like this, how devastating that must feel as well. Psychologically, I feel like tennis especially is so much about your cohort and the players you come up with, and you measuring yourself against them got to be a bit of a reality check for yourself.
Did you see one of the players who have done it, who have won 2 Grand Slam titles at junior level in a single season? Belinda Bencic.
I saw that. And Anna Konja.
Yep.
2 of the best. Belinda Bencic forever. How about that wheelchair men's final was fantastic.
It was. So you touched on it. Oda takes over as world number 1. He beats Britain's Alfie Hewitt, the legend that is Alfie Hewitt, in the final. At the age of 17, he becomes world number 1. Dev, Alfie Hewitt is a legend of this sport.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just me saying it as a British stan on this one. He's legitimately one of the titans of the sport. And to have him be overcome by a 17-year-old on his way to his first Grand Slam and the world number 1, this is a proper changing of the guard.
Very cool. I think he dedicated this match to his idol Shingo Kaneda, who's probably the pre-Alfie Hewitt GOAT on the men's side for wheelchair tennis dominance. I think he won 28 Grand Slam titles. Alfie Hewitt's 25.
Yeah.
I believe so. Like we're gonna get quite a few more of these, hopefully, and that can only be a great thing. Because rivalries like this, I think, break into the mainstream as well when you get two people who are so excellent at their craft. But to be this young and to be this good, he opens up a new dimension as well in terms of what he could produce on the court as a wheelchair player, Simon. I think that's really cool to see.
Totally, yeah. And just mention that point on Alfie Hewitt. Alfie Hewitt is a 7-time singles champion.
Yeah, you made it sound like he was on his way out, but I do understand I
think he's 17-time Grand Slam title winners that he's had in doubles. 17? Is he ever lost? I need to check this, whether he actually lost in doubles ever. He might have a perfect record at Grand Slam level.
How about Deirdre De Groot as well?
What's that in a row now? Is it 10 in a row? Like, talk about a player who's just unstoppable on the women's doubles scene. I think, 10 singles titles in a row. Ridiculous. She's won every Grand Slam title since her triumph in the US Open in 2020. Dude, like, talk about some, pioneers of the sport on the men's and women's side. We're talking about utter legends here, and what a time in wheelchair tennis.
Yeah, 10th Grand Slam singles title in a row, a streak that dates back to the US Open in 2020. I will say, for the Oda Hewitt conversation, dominance is wonderful, and I think that's, a lot of what we talk about in tennis is frankly about dominance and who can be the GOAT and who can win all these matches and who can rack up all these titles. To get a rivalry going, to get a really strong rivalry going is also one of those things you need to lift the tour. And I'm hopeful for that Oda Hewitt thing to become a really special matchup from time to time. I also want to shout out Dino Prismic, who won the boys title. This guy, Simon, I think he made some waves earlier in the year and also late last year. But you were talking about translating the success from the boys and girls tours to the professional ranks. I have a feeling about him. Maybe it's because the Balkans are churning out just an extreme amount of phenomenal tennis players, but it feels like Croatia's got a special one here.
Yeah, he's managed by
Ljubicic,
yeah, Jesus. Other giant Croatian. Yeah, I think he's coached by him as well, right? Or something equivalent to it. So good pedigree in that regard.
Doing really well at the challenger level as well. I think he's reached the quarters 5 times already, which again, it's usually a good gauge. If you're doing well in the challengers, it's going to usually lead to good things. We'll talk about some other challenger level tennis, including Andy Murray winning again after the break, when we get to parting shots on Open Era to wrap up this year's French Open. Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. It's that time again. Simon, parting shots, take it away.
Okay, Andy Murray's won again, Dev.
He did. Surbiton.
Sound the alarms. Yep.
Servitron? Surbiton.
I know there's a new Transformers movie coming out, but I don't believe it was Cybertron.
Part of me thought it was called that because it was in the suburbs, but I understand if that's not true.
The Surbiton Trophy in England, it must be in the UK, surely.
It is, yeah.
I wonder where it is. I need to learn this. Probably some very nice part of the country.
I can tell you right now, it is in Surbiton. So if you need to, I think it's in West London, within the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames. I can say that now, Simon, because I'm officially English. I've traveled enough of the UK in the last week to officially call myself as a UK file. So I'm comfortable saying it.
Would you like another shot at the naming convention of Kingston upon Thames?
No, I would like to gloss over that immediately. How dare you? How the audacity. Wow. Once a colonizer, always a colonizer. I see how it is. Okay.
Hang on, wait a minute. I know language is flexible, right? And it evolves throughout. So maybe, okay, sure, fine.
Andy Murray, though, winning on grass now. This is what it's all about. But I do wonder what success means for him at Wimbledon.
Well, judging from the way that Murray was talking during the course of the week, did you see some of his quotes where he was like, yeah, I think I can beat anyone, even top 10 players on grass? Like, well, let's hold your horses for a second.
It'll be cool, but also, the sets, man. 5?
He's going to be drawn reasonably well, I think, at Wimbledon, like just from where his ranking is and that kind of thing. So I think if he manages to get a decent draw, then look out. I think he can make the second week at Wimbledon. He's so good on the surface. He knows it really well. And a lot of players, lest we forget, are really shit on grass. So that is a big leg up for him.
That's the other thing. The fact that half the tour looks like Bambi on the surface is a whole different animal. But I think that's probably overstated as well. The physical grind is where I remain concerned for Andy. If you can keep it to 3 sets, the world is your oyster, but we'll see.
I just think it's hilarious. Like him circling the top 10 on the men's side. Let's have a look at the top 10 for a second, Dev, just for argument's sake, and think how many of these are actually any good on grass. Okay, Carlos Alcaraz. He's going to be a very good grass court player in his career. Danny Medvedev?
Maybe?
Novak Djokovic, I don't think he's going to do anything on grass ever again.
Okay, wow, all right.
Casper Ruud, not a chance he does anything on grass.
Steph
keeps losing in the first round at Wimbledon, so yeah, okay, take that for what it's worth. Holger Rune, let's see.
Out eventually,
jury's
probably.
Definitely out.
Yeah.
Andrei Rublev, again, jury's definitely out. Rublev's a decent enough record on grass, but I think if Andy Murray's looking at the top 10 and being like, I can beat this dude. Taylor Fritz, I don't think Andy Murray can beat Taylor Fritz on a grass court.
I don't think he can beat Felix on a grass court either, to be honest.
And I don't think he can beat Jannik Sinner on a grass court.
Yeah.
So we're in a weird position where I think he has more of a chance against the world number 5 than he does in the world number 10.
If he does get drawn with Felix, that'll be fascinating because this is someone in FAA whose confidence is not exactly red hot. So the crowd being totally against him, this could be a moment for him to maybe kickstart his season if they were to play early.
Someone check those ELO rankings for grass court tennis and tell me who's in the top 10, because that would be an interesting one to look at. That being said, Dev, I think Murray has a really good shot of doing some stuff at the... Jesus, what are we calling it now? It's not the Stella Artois Championship.
Whatever. The Queen's Club
The
one?
Blue Tournament? Yeah. Is it the car company now? Something like that?
I found it interesting. They advertised that tournament quite prominently on the Piccadilly line. See? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that English knowledge, by the way. I'm a little stunned you didn't gasp when I referenced the Piccadilly line.
Oh, on the Piccadilly line, you say? Goodness me, Jesus. I only usually get that on the Bakerloo.
It's called the Cinch Championships, by the way, I believe. Cinch.
Excuse me for not knowing who Cinch were. I still don't know who they are. Anyway, let's change gears. There was an article written on the WTA website. I keep shouting out the WTA website during the course of these parting shot segments. Mostly because it's actually quite good, Dev.
It is. There's some informative stuff there.
Greg Garbo wrote this article that I'm talking about. And of course I had to bring it up because it's about Justine Henin. So encourage everyone to check it out just on the basis that Justine Henin is fantastic. And we saw the real life resurfacing of her ghost from the past in Karolina Muchova. So never gone, Justine. Still circling the tour.
Iga did something that Justine Henin had done as well, right? By winning this slam. So I do like whenever I hear Justine Henin's name back in the conversation. I think, yes, this is it. Iga is the first player since Justine Henin to win consecutive women's titles at Roland Garros. That's pretty dang cool.
I think if you're ever in that kind of company, you can feel fairly good about how the week has gone, or how the past 2 weeks have gone. Dev, Kai Nishikori making a return to challenger scene. He's been out of action for 20 months, a very, very long time. Lest we forget, Kai Nishikori was the former world number 4. He has had hip surgery, a la Andy Murray, a la Rafael Nadal, a la pretty much anyone who's elite level tennis at this point. Why are we getting so many hip surgeries? Anyway, it's good to see Kai back. You expect him to do anything, or is this very much playing out the rest of his career and enjoying the last knockings of him?
Yeah, I don't expect much in terms of maybe results. For me, it's like a bit on the Milos Raonic similarity, where I just want to see him back on the court competing and having fun. Like Milos looks like he's going to play the grass court season, which is awesome, but do I have many expectations for him? Not really. And I think Kai probably falls into that same boat. That being said, we were just talking about people not knowing how to play on grass. Milos drawing one of the big people early would be hilariously great. It would be great.
Give me Milos Raonic, Stefanos Tsitsipas round one.
Oh my God.
I love it so much.
Speaking of the latest power couple in pro tennis.
Yeah, so this may be all a work. Do you think it's a work? Tsitsipas and Badosa?
Yeah, I mean, 30%, 40% to work.
30% think it's a work.
I saw Vanch, friend of the show Vanch, tweet out that they alone had produced more content than the Roland Garros official accounted in the 3 days they had been publicly dating each other. And I mean, that's probably true, right?
So let's drop some more British lingo, seeing as you are familiar now that you've become fully ingrained in British culture and everything. Stefanos Tsitsipas is clearly punching here, is he not?
So I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm going to guess that means that he is doing better than he should be doing based on his looks and personality.
That is correct. Yes, that's you've managed to perfectly explain the
Fantastic. It's interesting because like I know Steph's rap is like he's a bit of an airhead kind of, right? Like he's fake deep. He says things that he read.
I'm not sure if he's real deep.
Yeah, exactly.
He's neither fake nor real deep.
And like Badosa, I think she, in some ways, is. I find her eloquent on some topics, especially mental health. I think she speaks really well about that. But then on other things, I don't exactly see a ton of nuance there. I think they're perfect. I think this is actually a match made in 10-7, and I can't wait to see where they go from here.
I thought Badosa was dating the dude with the big biceps.
He was, but there was a public Instagram deletion of each other that I think set the tone for what was to come next.
I like that guy. He seemed all right.
It's a male model, I guess, right? So, I mean, perhaps Paola has a type.
Go back to him, Paola. Come on.
Steph's hair might be better. I could earnestly say this. His hair might be better.
His biceps are not, though, are they?
I loved Steph. Remember he got mad at his mom for talking too much at a recent tournament, which I thought was fascinating because his dad talks way too much. And like, why are you mad at your mom for talking? But apparently it's because she was speaking in Russian when he was playing a Russian opponent. And she's basically like, Mom, he can understand you. And I just found that hilarious.
That's a reason to call her.
That's a reason to yell at your mom publicly, isn't it? Isn't it though?
My man, you're like 25 years of age.
Get rid of your family, man. At least for matches.
Like you're dating someone now. Like goodness me, get your family out of your life at least. Yeah, potentially many things to underline about that point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, shall we end with something decidedly not serious?
So Danny Medvedev was seen during the course of the week shilling for Ubisoft and playing Rainbow Six, which led me to ask the question:
Is he an influencer? Is he an influencer for them?
Has to be, right? I think he was just playing the game. I don't think he was. Maybe money was changing hands. I'm not sure.
I've heard him talk about Rainbow Six several times before, so I feel like this just might be his favorite game. Weirdly enough,
he does seem like a Rainbow Six fan.
He does.
Does he not?
He does.
Let me to ask the question: which tennis player would you most be interested in watching on a Twitch stream?
Is Iga a cop-out here?
Yeah.
I think Iga would be fun, because I think she'd play a good game. She'd play a game that not necessarily everyone's flocking to.
I wonder what she would be playing. Maybe like one of those life sim kind of games would be fun.
Yes, I agree.
Very good. I'm going to pick Holger Rune.
Wow, okay. Jeez. Playing what? Probably Minecraft, right? That's what he plays.
I really want to just like fully go for it and watch him play Call of Duty just to see whether or not the personality sticks or not. I think it would be hilarious.
It's fantastic.
Don't, by the way, think you've managed to get away with something during the course of that segment. Is that I heard you refer to Stefanos Tsitsipas as mum, M-U-M. You really have been gone in Britain for too long.
Man. I know you're not supposed to eat it every day, but I got into the habit of eating an English breakfast quite often, and my God, my arteries are in trouble. We should probably...
Did you have the full one?
No. I think I kept it like half. So I feel...
So what was on the plate then?
You had some bangers, you had some potato squares, which I found a really bizarre way to describe potatoes, like fried potatoes, but potato squares, some egg, some black pudding, some mushrooms, and some back bacon, which I don't really understand how English people define bacon. That was an alarming thing, I realized.
Well, what you're eating in back bacon is what I would describe as bacon.
Yeah, okay.
Like, how you have to translate this all the time is that when someone asks me for bacon in Canada, like, I have to say, like, they want streaky bacon. That's what they're asking for. So there you go.
All right, parting shots complete. My brain is melting. So there's 2 challenges remaining. What do you got?
I'm going to give a shout out to Nikola Jokic, the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic, who got a text from Novak and that made his damn day.
My God, he's a good basketball player. Fuck me, Dev. He's fun to watch, despite the fact of all the things that could be labeled towards the Denver Nuggets and maybe the run they've been on and who they've played and everything. But goodness me, he's very, very enjoyable to watch.
You asked me earnestly where he ranks among the greats, and I think that's a very interesting question that a lot of people have had to revisit after they said he shouldn't win the MVP 3 times in a row because he's not good enough, which felt like a bit of a Steve Nash cop-out, but I don't think that's true at all. I think he's clearly in a different echelon, very, very high up there. He needs a couple titles, though, at least 2 or 3.
There is legitimate case to be made that you could say that he's the greatest player of all time in basketball. I mean, titles aside and everything, but statistically, I'm just talking about numbers wise. This is, I think it is the greatest single statistical offensive postseason in NBA history from a single player, which is quite impressive, really quite impressive for a center.
Amazing how fit he is. Like, it's just absolutely incredible how much court he covers, and you watch him compared to some of the people who are guarding him, and he is running circles around them and doing so many things. It's an absolute marvel to watch. He's awesome. Shouts to Jamal Murray as well, Kitchener, Ontario's finest.
Absolutely. 0-time All-Star. Ridiculous that he's not an All-Star. I've never been an All-Star. I was watching this video the other day that was talking about the difference between Shaquille O'Neal in the year 2000, which I think a lot of people would define as one of the single greatest postseason performances from a big man in history. And basically saying like Nikola Jokic is almost head and shoulders above that season, plus he's shooting 40% from 3-point as well, which is just like mind-meltingly impressive.
Wowza, incredible. All right, that's a good one. I think you have this in Vancouver, so this will sound like a shot at Toronto, but I'm going to shout out that you can tap with your regular bank card at any London train station. That is a revelation. Holy cow, that is great. I really enjoyed that compared to digging for my Oyster card or trying to put money on that. I found that to be quite convenient.
Good shit. More of this in more places, please. Support public transit, people.
Seriously. And again, I actually want to shout out public transit in general and the people who are striking for their rights in the UK as well. I found how everything is labeled about that super helpful as well, Simon. Like, I know it's an inconvenience in some ways, but if you know well ahead of time, there's a lot of ways to work around it. So I think that is a powerful statement as well.
Which was your favorite tube station that you visited while you were over there?
Oh, geez.
What was your local, I guess?
Bethnal Green was my
Bethnal Green,
yeah.
okay.
And I like that area as well. I thought Liverpool, Maine was a bit busy, but I did enjoy like all the stuff you could do around it. There's a lot of cool vintage shops as well in that area.
You were in a nice part of London then.
Yeah. I'd been there before, but I found it to be better this time around in terms of like, I think we went to more London-y spots, more East London-y spots than I had been to before. So I had a good time, sir. But I think I will leave it there before I fall into a deep slumber because I've been up for 24 hours.
Lightweight. Jesus. We've got to do 2 podcasts tonight.
Good show. All right. A reminder, we are on patreon.com/open era. Join us there. Get the show ad free. Plus, you get it early on Sundays or whenever our dear producer Kevin can get this up. Thank you so much to him for pulling a late one to make this show sound great. So we owe him a lot of thanks. But you join the show on Patreon. You also join us on Discord where we're chatting tennis all the time, including throughout the last 2 weeks. The Discord was awesome. Once again, during the French Open, learned a lot, had a great time chatting with the folks in there. So be like them. We also got a new review from Smurfy924. They said, I truly enjoy this podcast for its creative / outside the box wink perspective. Haha. It is smart and unabashed, and I enjoy the fact that salty language is not frowned upon, but utilized as an exclamation point to a thought or an opinion. I joined the Patreon as a small means of support and gratitude. Thanks, and please keep the episodes coming. I wait every week. Thank you so much, Smurfy924. For those wonderfully kind words. We keep making the show for people like yourself. We are also on twitter.com/openerapod. Didn't tweet as much over the weekend because I was trying to get out of England, but we'll still be on there talking up a storm. And I think that's it. Also, wait, sorry. Be like Smurfy. Give us a rating. We love those. We truly do. Those are great. So rate us, review us, wherever you get your pods. That was awesome. And now that's it. For producer Kevin on the ones and twos, thank you so much to him. And for Simon, thank you for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.